First contact and underestimation. The year was 2189, and humanity had finally established a firm foothold beyond Earth. The lunar colonies house over 50,000 people, Mars had 3 thriving dome cities, and mining operations on the asteroid belt were fueling an unprecedented economic boom. Scientists had even established research outposts on Europa and Titan, pushing the boundaries of where humans could survive. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't confined to a single world, and the future looked promising. Captain Elena Reyes guided her patrol ship, the UES Sentinel, through the rings of Saturn with practiced ease. The Sentinel wasn't large, just 90 meters from bow to stern, but it represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Equipped with fusion drives, railguns, and a crew of 28 highly trained personnel, it was humanity's watchful guardian in the outer solar system. Another quiet day in paradise. Lieutenant Marcos Kim said from his position at the sensor array, "Nothing but ice, rock, and more ice." Elena smiled. "Appreciate the quiet while it lasts, Lieutenant. Once the new mining platforms come online next month, this sector will be crawling with cargo ships." The calm of the moment shattered as warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Captain." Kim's voice changed instantly from relaxed to alarmed. "Massive energy signature detected at the edge of the system. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Elena moved quickly to his station. "Show me." The display revealed a swirling vortex of energy forming near the orbit of Pluto, a distortion in space that shouldn't exist according to any human understanding of physics. As they watched, something massive emerged from the distortion. A ship, but one that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. It was at least 3 kilometers long, with a sleek, organic design that suggested an alien aesthetic far removed from human engineering principles. "Send an emergency transmission to Earth Command," Elena ordered, "and bring us to full alert status." Before they could act, the Sentinel's communications array went dark. Whatever the alien vessel was, it had deployed some form of jamming technology that rendered human communication systems useless. Aboard the massive ship, Supreme Commander Xalthic of the Viridian Collective studied the readings of the small human vessel with his 4 eyes. His gray-green skin had a metallic sheen under the ambient lighting of the command center, and the cranial ridges that marked his rank pulsed with a faint blue glow. He turned to his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vren. "These humans have barely mastered basic space travel," Xalthic said, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic overtones of his species. "Their technology is primitive, their defenses negligible." Vren consulted the data streaming across his console. "The scans confirm it. Supreme Commander, they possess rudimentary nuclear weapons, chemical propellants, and early-stage fusion technology. They appear to be at least 4 centuries behind our technological development." Xalthic made a gesture that in his culture signified dismissive amusement. "Then this will be a standard assimilation. Prepare the diplomatic envoy to deliver our terms, and move the fleet into position around their homeworld. The Collective's archives will welcome another species' knowledge, and their resources will serve the greater good of our civilization." What the Viridians failed to understand was that humans didn't evolve on a garden world like theirs. Earth was a crucible that had forged humanity through countless catastrophes, conflicts, and challenges. Humans had survived ice ages, pandemics, world wars, and their own self-destructive tendencies. They had adapted, evolved, and overcome every obstacle their harsh planet had thrown at them. On Earth, alarms sounded in military installations worldwide as deep space monitoring stations detected the alien vessel's approach. Within hours, more ships emerged from similar spatial distortions, 20 in total, each as massive as the first. In the Emergency Operations Center beneath Washington, D.C., President Adira Okafor received the initial reports with grim determination. At 58, she had navigated political crises, economic downturns, and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. "What do we know?" she asked General Wyzong, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "Not enough. Zhang replied candidly. The alien fleet has established orbit around Earth and deployed smaller vessels to positions near our major cities. They've made no hostile moves yet, but they've also completely overwhelmed our communications satellites. The only reason we're still able to coordinate is because of the hardened fiber optic networks we established after the blackout of '76. President Okafor straightened her shoulders. Convene an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. Contact every major military power. If this is first contact with an alien civilization, we need to present a united front. For the first time in human history, national differences faded into insignificance. Within 12 hours, the leaders of every major nation had agreed to a unified response protocol. Whatever these aliens wanted, humanity would speak with one voice. The alien envoy arrived the next day, landing a shuttlecraft in the center of the United Nations Plaza in New York. From it emerged three beings that looked vaguely insectoid, but with a strangely elegant, almost regal bearing. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and iridescent exoskeletons that shifted colors as they moved. Ambassador Lin Chen had been selected to represent Earth, chosen for her brilliant diplomatic career and her unique ability to find common ground between even the most hostile parties. As she approached the aliens, she fought to keep her expression neutral despite the awe and fear churning inside her. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth," she said, her voice steady. "We extend our hand in friendship and look forward to peaceful dialogue between our species." The lead alien stepped forward. "I am Emissary Kral of the Viridian Collective. We acknowledge your greeting, representative of Earth. The Supreme Commander awaits your presence for formal discussions regarding your planet's integration into our collective." Chen's diplomatic training kicked in immediately, hiding her concern at the presumptuous phrasing. "We would be honored to meet with your Supreme Commander, though I must clarify that any discussions about integration would be premature. We hope first to establish mutual understanding and respect." The alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Understanding will come with time. The Supreme Commander will explain all that is necessary." 24 hours later, Ambassador Chen and a small delegation of Earth's most brilliant minds boarded an alien shuttle bound for the Viridian flagship. The journey was short but profound, humanity's first venture beyond their own ships into truly alien technology. The meeting chamber aboard the Viridian vessel was vast, with walls that seemed to shift and pulse with living light. Supreme Commander Xalthek sat upon an elevated platform, flanked by advisors and guards. The scale of everything, from the ceiling heights to the doorways, emphasized to the human delegation just how small they were in comparison. "Ambassador Chen," Xalthek's voice boomed through the chamber, perfectly translated by some unseen technology. "The Viridian Collective welcomes Earth to the greater galactic community. For 10,000 years, we have guided developing species and protected them from the dangers of the cosmos." Chen bowed slightly. "We appreciate your welcome, Supreme Commander. Humanity is eager to learn about the wider galaxy and establish peaceful relations with your people." Xalthek made that same dismissive gesture Chen had seen from the emissary. "Relations between us are simple to establish. The collective offers protection, guidance, and limited technological sharing. In return, Earth will provide resources, labor, and complete administrative compliance. Your governments may continue to manage local affairs under the oversight of collective administrators, of course." Chen kept her expression carefully neutral, though her heart raced. "Supreme Commander, while we appreciate your offer, humanity values its independence. We would prefer to establish relations as equals, with mutual respect for sovereignty." The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Xalthek's cranial ridges darkened. "You misunderstand, Ambassador. This is not a negotiation. The collective has encountered hundreds of species at your development stage. All eventually recognize the benefits of our protection. Some simply take longer than others to accept reality. And if we decline your protection?" asked Dr. Rajiv Patel, Earth's leading physicist. Xalthek's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, Species who reject collective protection often suffer unfortunate natural disasters, asteroid impacts, solar flares, gravitational anomalies. The galaxy is filled with dangers for unprotected worlds. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable despite its indirect delivery. Chen stepped forward. Supreme Commander, humanity has a saying. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. We respectfully request time to consult with our governments regarding your proposal. You have 30 Earth days to prepare your people for integration, Zolthic responded. After that time, the process will begin, with or without your cooperation. Back on Earth, Chen delivered the grim news to a joint session of world leaders. They don't want allies, she explained. They want subjects. Their technology and numbers make them confident we can't resist. President Okafor stood before the assembled leaders, her voice firm. Then we have 30 days to prove them wrong. For the first time in human history, every nation worked together with a single purpose. In secret facilities around the world, scientists and soldiers prepared for what seemed like an impossible fight. Old enemies shared intelligence, resources, and technologies. While the Viridians watched from orbit, believing humans were preparing to surrender, Earth was actually building weapons, training fighters, and searching for any possible advantage. In a classified research facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Maya Tanaka made a breakthrough that would change everything. Her team had been studying fragments of Viridian technology recovered from discarded materials near their landing sites. Their quantum communication system is incredibly advanced, she explained to General Zhang over a secure line. But it has a fundamental weakness we can exploit. They've optimized it so thoroughly for efficiency that they've created a single point of failure. A precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse at the right frequency could disrupt their entire command and control network. At the same time, in a repurposed mineshaft in South Africa, a team led by Commander Jason Okoro had been analyzing Viridian tactical patterns from historical data they gleaned from their computer systems. They fight like they've had no real opposition for millennia, Okoro reported. Their strategies are textbook perfect but lack adaptation. They expect enemies to behave like they do, logically, methodically, and predictably. They don't understand human unpredictability. As the deadline approached, humanity's plan took shape. It wasn't based on matching the Viridian superior technology or overwhelming numbers. Instead, it leveraged the traits that had allowed humans to survive on their harsh homeworld. Adaptability, ingenuity, and the fierce determination that emerged when backed into a corner. 3 days before the Viridian deadline, President Okafor addressed a worldwide audience from an undisclosed location. Her message was brief but powerful. For all our history, humanity has faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. From ice ages to plagues, from world wars to climate catastrophes, we have always found a way to survive and thrive. Now we face our greatest challenge, a technologically superior force that sees us not as equals, but as resources to be exploited. They believe their advantage in technology means certain victory. They believe our divisions make us weak. They believe we will surrender rather than fight against overwhelming odds. They are wrong. Tomorrow, we show the Viridian Collective, and ourselves, exactly what humanity is capable of when united against a common threat. We may be outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something they lost long ago: the creativity and courage that comes from facing extinction and refusing to accept it. Aboard his flagship, Supreme Commander Zolthic watched the human broadcasts with growing confidence. These creatures were clearly divided, their nations still maintaining separate military forces despite their claims of unity. Their technology was primitive, their weapons laughably ineffective against Viridian defenses. Standard conquest protocols would be more than sufficient. It would be the biggest miscalculation in the Viridian Collective's 10,000-year history. The impossible victory. As the 30-day deadline expired, Supreme Commander Zolthic prepared to implement standard conquest protocols. From his command center, He observed the planet below with detached interest. Earth was just one more world to add to the collective's vast territory, barely worth his personal attention, yet procedure demanded his oversight for first-stage integration. "Begin the demonstration phase," he ordered. "Target uninhabited areas near their largest population centers. Once they see our weapons capabilities, they will surrender. It has always been so." Sub-Commander Vren coordinated the attack from his station. Primary weapons charging. Supreme Commander. Target locks confirmed on 7 demonstration sites. What the Viridians didn't realize was that humans had been studying their targeting systems for weeks. Each time the alien vessels conducted scans, Earth's scientists collected data on their methods. By now, they could predict where the Viridians would strike with 87% accuracy. Deep underground in Houston, Commander Eliza Washington monitored the final preparations. At 43, she had spent her entire adult life in the military, earning a reputation for unorthodox tactics that consistently succeeded against superior forces. Now she was coordinating the most important battle in human history. "All units in position," reported her communications officer. "Operation Achilles is ready." Washington nodded grimly. "Send the signal." Across Earth's surface and in hidden bases throughout the solar system, humanity's forces received the go code. The first phase of their desperate plan began not with a massive attack or defensive posture, but with a simple white-flagged transport ship. The small vessel, emblazoned with Earth Diplomatic Corps, approached the Viridian flagship with measured speed. Its transponder broadcast a message of capitulation on all frequencies, requesting permission to board and discuss terms of surrender. Aboard the flagship, Zoltek allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. As expected, bring them aboard, but maintain weapon locks on their planet. These primitive species often attempt desperate measures before accepting reality. The transport docked in one of the flagship's auxiliary bays. 6 humans emerged, dressed in formal diplomatic attire, carrying no visible weapons. Scans confirmed they possessed nothing threatening. At their center was a woman in her 50s, gray-haired and diminutive compared to her Viridian hosts. "I am Dr. Sofia Rodriguez," she announced calmly. "I represent Earth's Unified Command. We wish to discuss the terms of humanity's integration into the collective." The Viridian security officer gestured for them to follow. "The Supreme Commander awaits." As they walked through the massive corridors of the alien vessel, Dr. Rodriguez mentally rehearsed the timing. In her pocket, a small device, seemingly a simple translator, was actually the culmination of Dr. Tanaka's research. It contained Earth's most sophisticated technology, built using principles gleaned from studying Viridian quantum communications. The human delegation was brought before Zoltek in the same grand chamber where Ambassador Chen had met him a month earlier. The Supreme Commander looked down upon them from his elevated position, emanating an aura of absolute authority. "You have chosen wisely," Zoltek began. "The integration process can now—" Before we proceed, Rodriguez interrupted, an act that visibly startled the Viridians. "I have been instructed to verify your identity as the legitimate authority of the collective. Our leadership requires confirmation." Zoltek's cranial ridges pulsed with irritation. "This is unnecessary. I am Supreme Commander Zoltek of the Viridian Collective. My authority extends across 3 galactic sectors and encompasses 412 worlds." Rodriguez nodded and checked her translator device. "Thank you, Supreme Commander. That is the confirmation we needed." With those words, she pressed a hidden button on the device. There was no explosion, no visible effect at all, just a subtle pulse of energy that spread throughout the ship, targeted specifically at the frequency Dr. Tanaka had identified as critical to Viridian quantum communications. Across the Viridian fleet, command systems suddenly lost coherence. Ship-to-ship communications collapsed. Targeting arrays displayed cascading errors. The quantum network that had served as the backbone of Viridian military superiority for millennia experienced its first true failure. On Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity launched its true response. This wasn't a conventional military attack. Humans knew they couldn't match Viridian firepower. Instead, they deployed thousands of small, stealthy drones, each carrying a specialized payload designed to exploit specific weaknesses in Viridian technology. Commander Washington's voice echoed through secure channels. All units, execute Phase 2. Remember your training. Hit and scatter. No heroics. From hidden lunar bases, Mars outposts, and camouflage Earth facilities, human pilots launched in fighters a fraction the size of Viridian vessels. These weren't designed for direct combat, but for surgical strikes against precise targets identified through weeks of observation. Major Darius Chen led the first wave of fighters from the lunar hidden base. His squadron of 12 pilots had trained relentlessly for this moment, practicing maneuvers that would have been considered suicidal in conventional warfare. Stay tight on approach, then break on my mark, he instructed his team as they accelerated toward the nearest Viridian destroyer. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, just blind them. The human fighters approached at incredible speed, using the chaotic electromagnetic environment created by Dr. Rodriguez's device to mask their signatures. The Viridian vessels, accustomed to fighting at a distance with overwhelming firepower, weren't designed for close-quarters defense against multiple small targets. Ken's fighters screamed past the destroyer's primary sensor array, releasing a cloud of specialized nanomaterial, another innovation born from studying Viridian technology. The particles adhered to the sensor surfaces, blocking their ability to accurately detect incoming threats. Target neutralized, Chen reported as his squadron regrouped. Moving to secondary objective. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human forces didn't attempt to destroy the Viridian vessels, but instead systematically disabled their ability to fight effectively. Communications arrays, weapons targeting systems, propulsion controls, all fell victim to precise attacks that exploited specific weaknesses. Aboard the flagship, chaos reigned. Zolthak stared in disbelief at status reports showing system failures across his fleet. "This is impossible," he hissed. "They are primitives. How are they coordinating these attacks without a quantum network?" Dr. Rodriguez and her delegation had been secured by Viridian guards, but she smiled despite her captivity. "We don't need quantum networks, Supreme Commander. Humans have been fighting without them for our entire history. We adapt to limitations rather than designing them away." As she spoke, the flagship shuddered violently. Emergency alarms blared as primary power systems failed, forcing a switch to auxiliary generators. The transition created a momentary gap in the ship's defensive shields, precisely what the human attack force had been waiting for. A specially designed missile penetrated the flagship's hull, not to explode, but to deploy a swarm of semi-autonomous robots. These machines had one purpose: locate and disable the vessel's central command systems without harming its structural integrity. On Earth, President Okafor monitored the battle from a hardened command center. General Zhang provided constant updates as humanity's seemingly impossible strategy unfolded. "Phase 2 is 85% complete," Zhang reported. 19 of their 20 capital ships have been effectively neutralized. Only the flagship maintains partial operational capacity. Okafor nodded. "Proceed with Phase 3. The final phase of humanity's plan was perhaps the most audacious. Rather than attempting to destroy the Viridian fleet, a task beyond Earth's capabilities, they would capture it. Teams of specially trained soldiers, using equipment designed to function in Viridian environments, boarded the disabled vessels. Commander Sophia Lee led the team assigned to capture the flagship itself. A veteran of special operations, Lee had spent the past month studying every scrap of information about Viridian physiology and ship layouts. "Remember," she told her team as they prepared to board, "non-lethal tactics only. We're not here for revenge. We're here to end this war permanently." The boarding team moved through the flagship's corridors with practiced precision, using specially designed stun weapons to incapacitate Viridian crew members. Their objective wasn't the bridge, but the ship's central database, the repository of all collective knowledge and the key to understanding their technology fully. When Lee's team reached the data center, they found it guarded by Galactic himself, along with his elite protectors. The Supreme Commander's cranial ridges glowed bright red with fury. "You primitive savages," he snarled. 10,000 years of collective history will not end at the hands of insignificant creatures barely out of their stone age. Lee stepped forward, her weapon lowered slightly. "This doesn't have to end in more violence, Supreme Commander. We don't want to destroy the collective. We just want our freedom." "Freedom?" Zoltek's laugh was harsh. "What use is freedom in a galaxy filled with predators far worse than us? The collective provides order, structure, protection. Without us, you would be harvested by the Drax or enslaved by the Morrigan Hive." "Perhaps," Lee acknowledged, "but that would be our choice to make. Humans prefer dangerous freedom to peaceful servitude. It's in our nature." Before Galactic could respond, the ship's internal communication system activated. Dr. Rodriguez's voice echoed through the corridors. "Supreme Commander, your fleet has been neutralized. Earth forces now control 17 of your vessels. The remaining 3, including this flagship, are surrounded. Please consider your position carefully." Galactic's eyes narrowed. "You lie. This is impossible." Lee gestured to one of her team members, who projected a holographic display showing the current status of the battle. The evidence was undeniable. The mighty Viridian fleet had been systematically disabled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. For the first time in his long life, Supreme Commander Galactic faced defeat. His cranial ridges faded to a dull gray as the reality of the situation became clear. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you accomplish this?" Lee smiled slightly. "You've relied on technological superiority for so long that you forgot the value of innovation. Your tactics haven't changed in centuries because they haven't needed to. Humans, on the other hand, have never had that luxury. We've always had to think creatively to survive." 6 hours later, in a hastily prepared conference room aboard the Viridian flagship, Supreme Commander Galactic signed the document that would become known as the Sol Accord. For the first time in the collective's 10,000-year history, they recognized another species as equals rather than subjects. President Okafor, who had traveled to the flagship for the signing, spoke briefly afterward. "Today marks not just humanity's introduction to the wider galaxy, but the beginning of a new approach to galactic relations. We do not seek dominion over the Viridian collective or any other species. We seek only the right to determine our own destiny." Galactic, humbled but still proud, responded, "The collective acknowledges the unique abilities of humanity. Your species has demonstrated qualities we have forgotten: adaptability, creativity, and remarkable determination. These are traits worthy of respect." In the months that followed, Earth established its presence in galactic politics not through conquest, but through diplomacy backed by demonstrated capability. The captured Viridian vessels were returned, after humanity had thoroughly studied their technology and installed safeguards against future aggression. Dr. Tanaka led the effort to understand and adapt Viridian technology for human use. Within a year, Earth had constructed its first true interstellar vessel, the UES Unity, combining Viridian principles with human innovation to create something neither species could have built alone. Commander Washington was appointed Earth's first admiral of the new Solar Defense Fleet. Under her leadership, humanity expanded its presence throughout the solar system, establishing defensive positions that would make any future invasion attempt prohibitively costly. Perhaps most significantly, news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy. Other species that had lived under collective rule for generations began to question their status. Some sought alliances with Earth, seeing humans as champions against oppression. Others watched warily, concerned that this new species might prove more dangerous than the collective had ever been. 5 years after the failed invasion, Ambassador Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the newly formed Galactic Council, reflected on how far humanity had come. "The Viridians made a fundamental error in their assessment of us," she explained to a group of diplomatic cadets. They measured civilization solely by technological advancement. They failed to recognize that adversity breeds strength, that limitations foster ingenuity, and that the will to remain free can overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. A cadet raised her hand. But, Ambassador, the Viridians still possess more advanced technology in many areas. Aren't we vulnerable if they decide to try again? Chen smiled. The Viridians won't risk another conflict with Earth, not because they fear our weapons, but because they've learned what we're capable of. Supreme Commander Xalthic, who remains in his position despite the loss, told me something profound during our last meeting. He said that in 10,000 years of expansion, the collective had forgotten what it meant to face a true challenge, to adapt or perish. He believes the encounter with humanity has made the collective stronger by forcing them to remember these principles. She paused, looking out at the stars visible through the council chamber's massive viewport. The greatest strength of humanity isn't our technology or our military might. It's our refusal to accept limitations, our ability to find solutions where others see only obstacles. The Viridians understand that now, as does the rest of the galaxy. We've earned our place among the stars not by conquering others, but by refusing to be conquered ourselves. On the edge of the solar system, at the point where the Viridian fleet had first appeared, humanity built a monument. It wasn't a celebration of victory or a warning to potential invaders, but a simple message encoded in every known galactic language. Earth welcomes peaceful visitors. Those who come as friends will find friendship in return. Those who come seeking dominion will find that some worlds are more costly to conquer than any prize they might offer. We are humanity. We seek peace, but we will never surrender our freedom. Throughout the galaxy, the message was received with clarity. Earth might be a newcomer to interstellar politics, but it was a force to be respected, not for the weapons it possessed, but for the indomitable spirit of its people.